A well-known Shaker hymn begins with these wise words: "'Tis the gift to be simple, 'tis the gift to be free." The Constitution is simple. The Ten Commandments are simple. The Golden Rule is simple. Human nature tends towards complexity, but wisdom is found in simplicity. The more complexity we add to our systems and institutions, the more controls are necessarily imposed upon the people. The more controls imposed, the more personal choice, creativity, and motivation are stifled. The more civil unrest increases, and the more mental health declines. The answer to growing societal problems is not achieved by adding to the complexities, but rather in returning to simplicity. Nowhere is this more true than in our public education system. If we want children to love learning, to be happy, productive, and self-motivated, we must simplify our educational system and return to what I will refer to as the simple art of learning. What does this look like? Well, here is a picture. If you were to ask many parents and much of the public, this picture would likely represent how they think education works here in Utah, with kids at the center and everything else, teachers, administrators, supports, and curriculum surrounding them to help their learning. In this picture, the kids are the reason for everything that happens in the education system. Here is another picture. Something I've learned during this last year on the board, after reading thousands of documents related to board business, and after participating in many, many meetings, is that this picture is a more realistic representation of how education is done in Utah. In this picture, we are seeing layer upon layer of infrastructure, corporate priorities, data extraction and tracking, national and global strategies, big money contracts, and social agendas. All of it is part of the educational landscape in our local schools, and much of it is the product of good intentions. This is where kids in Utah fit into this picture. Can you see them? When I got elected to the board, I had a list of 12 questions that I promised my constituents I would ask before voting on educational issues. A few of those were: who is asking for this? Where did the idea for this come from? Does it support a local parent-oriented education model or a more centralized model? What are the intended consequences for families? What adverse impact could the proposed standards, assessments, resources, and policies have on individuals and families now and in the future? As board members, we must always remember that the interests of business, government, or any other groups are secondary to the rights of the parents, who are the primary customer and consumer of educational services for their children. This graphic demonstrates how every year funding goes up. We are spending more money than ever on public education, almost $7 billion in 2021 alone. We are hiring more experts and dedicating more funds to professional training than ever before. But somehow, all this money, all this expertise, all this data collected, all the outside third-party involvement, all the outsourced strategies and initiatives, they all miss the mark. Academic performance for our kids in math, language arts, and science has been trending downward across all demographics since 2017, well before COVID hit. I don't want to reduce our kids to mere data points. I want to make it clear that these graphs are only part of the bigger, more concerning picture. Ultimately, we are overcomplicating and micromanaging the joy out of what for centuries has been considered a natural, intuitive, and continuous process for all human beings, the art of learning. Paint by number efforts in education, such as those listed here, can never create a truly authentic picture of a student's potential. Instead, they break down the multidimensional aspects of a child into smaller, flat units of data in an effort to control outcomes. Personality, character, imagination, none of these can ever be truly quantified or measured. We can't personalize, customize, and standardize all at the same time. It's just not possible. Individualized learning is not a science, it's an art. If we desire each child to become a one-of-a-kind masterpiece that will aspire to greatness and inspire future generations, we must get back to the basics. We must let teachers teach. Teachers shouldn't be social workers, thought police, behavioral scientists, social activists, or substitute parents. They should be teachers and love what they teach. They should be given the time and supports they need to teach their subject well and to inspire in their students a love of learning. This can be done with a renewed emphasis on content specialty training, free of activist agendas, data-centric assessments, and requirements. Second, we need to return to books that inspire imagination and books that, as Lincoln said, touch the better angels of our nature. Classical literature is the best medicine for social and emotional challenges that our kids are facing. Classical literature transcends culture and race and helps us understand our shared human nature. The classics teach universal or widely applicable themes, skillful use of language and literary elements, originality, a concern with truth, realistic and complex characters that students can identify with and learn from, the power to endure and the ability to overcome adversity, human nature, the good and the bad, and principles and values that have stood the test of time. We must unplug our students from screens and reconnect them with people. All of us know what the research says about too much screen time and how it creates discipline issues, anxiety, depression, etc. Digital literacy is impairing actual literacy. We can improve student mental health naturally by returning to direct teacher-to-student instruction instead of immersing our kids more and more in computer-based learning. Next, we must treat children as individuals, not as data points, and not as collectives or identity groups. The USBE can re-examine all its data collection contracts with third parties, restrict the use of P20 longitudinal studies, and shift to models of instruction that respect student privacy. Next, our schools need to scale back programs and personnel that are being used to take over the roles that rightly belong to parents and families. One of the greatest blessings of attachment to parents is that it creates a secure base for the child. Why does he need a base? So that he can stretch beyond his boundaries to explore his world. It gives him courage. Simplicity is a work of art. Simplicity brings joy. When we appeal to the better angels of our own natures, we will be better able to help our kids rediscover the natural joy and art of learning. Simplicity is good for teachers. Schools and teachers need their roles streamlined to be most effective. Simplicity is good for students. When children are healthy, they are open to trying new things. They're enthusiastic, self-motivated learners, and as they try to make sense of the world, they experiment, build, and investigate. You'll likely recognize many of the names shown here. Names like Mark Twain, Harriet Tubman, Ingvar Kamprad, Thomas Sowell, and others. Each of these individuals was just that, an individual with unique characteristics, aptitudes, challenges, and unique backgrounds. Each had an unconventional, non-standardized, and non-data-driven education that uniquely prepared them to make their mark on the world. Each of these individuals have added richness to our American culture and new ideas that have inspired generations. Each was a masterpiece in their own right, all without data, computers, or an overcomplicated education system that seeks to control more than it inspires. 'Tis a gift to be simple, 'tis the gift to be free. There is great wisdom in simplicity. Education and the educational system need not and should not be overly complicated or burdensome for families and teachers. Simple does not mean easy, but the freedom gained through simplicity is worth our very best efforts. By following the simple suggestions in this presentation, we can return to the simple art and joy of learning. In so doing, we will inspire a new generation of students with the freedom and capacity to develop their own unique gifts, ideas, and characteristics to add to our culture and to the rich tapestry of our American heritage. I will end where I began. 'Tis the gift to be simple. 'Tis the gift to be free. 'Tis the gift to come down where we ought to be. And when we find ourselves in the place just right, 'twill be in the valley of love and delight.